One of the ironies of doing a PhD is that those who are best prepared for and understand what is needed to do a PhD are often the ones who are the most stressed out when things inevitably go off the rails at some stage during their PhD. To explain this, let me give an example of a PhD working in an area like computer vision or somewhere similar in computer science. Typically, they will be trying to create a new technique or method that is able to outperform the current methods, has some, new knowledge contribution or new technique contribution, and is something that they will hopefully eventually publish and will form a key part of their PhD. Now, of course, things don't always go as planned. And so what can often happen is that the research can go off track, the code can not work, the system that they're programming or coding may become so unwieldy that they don't really understand what's happening and why things are going wrong, and things can feel like they get out of control very, very quickly. Now, in those situations, one of the things that you don't want to be doing as a supervisor and as a student is trying to do all of the things that your PhD will eventually require all at once, then and there, because the pressure will be just immense. And to actually do that is, of course, grossly unrealistic. Even when things are going well, it's still very, very challenging. And so one of the things that we often do in situations like this is we work with the student to step things back a little bit and try and get them focusing on just one core thing. And what they'll inevitably say, especially if they're a student who understands the PhD process and they've done their preparation before starting the PhD, is, oh, but what you're proposing to do, I probably won't be able to publish that. It doesn't seem particularly novel. I'm worried about whether it will meet the bar for sufficient research contribution and generation of knowledge for my PhD. And the key aim at this point is to totally take that off the table. So to point out that at the moment the student is understandably struggling, and most students, almost all students, will struggle at some stage, often multiple times during their PhD, and reassure them that this is really an exercise to really get them focused, to get some very clear, concrete, tangible wins on the board, and that just because the specific thing that we're going to do right now isn't necessarily going to directly produce a publication or some groundbreaking research, that it's a very important step to doing so. So in the computer vision field or robotics field, typically a student may be working on creating a new technique and trying to make that technique work better at some specific task. In computer vision, it could be depth estimation, it could be localization, it could be semantic segmentation, it could be general scene understanding. And one of the eventual aims of this is to demonstrate that the method that they're proposing works generally and across the board, that it's not sort of a fluke, it's not overfitting to one specific data set. And so what eventually you want to do is demonstrate that the system works and produces compelling performance benefits across a number of standard benchmark data sets. And this is very much the conventional way things are done. If you are proposing a pre-processing or post-processing method that is supposedly agnostic and can be applied to any system, then the other thing you'll need to do is demonstrate that that helps not just one technique, but helps a whole range of techniques that you could apply it to. Now, if you are struggling and overwhelmed, the pressure of having to demonstrate a system across many, many data sets and show that it benefits many, many existing techniques is overwhelming, and it's way too much to tackle at that point in time when you're struggling a little bit. So what you might do is step it back several steps. And so you might try and create a very simple, and it could use 20-year-old statistical or basic machine learning methods, doesn't have to be fairly flash or very modern, and demonstrate some key simple concept on one technique and on one data set, and suppress all those things in the back of your head which are saying, well, that's not going to have enough novelty and I'm not going to be able to publish that. That is not the point of this exercise. The point of this exercise is to do something where you understand completely what is happening in terms of data sets, in terms of the techniques, in terms of the results, generate a crisp, compelling result. The result itself may not be state of the art compared to all of the other methods out there, but in terms of the core improvement or benefit you're trying to demonstrate, it will crisply demonstrate that. And then once you have your confidence up, because your confidence will grow even with this small win, what you can then do is work with your supervisor to build on that foundation, to add sophistication to your technique, to expand it, to increase its complexity as needed, but building on that simple foundation that you understand completely. Also building it in terms of starting to explore and demonstrate and evaluate it on multiple data sets and multiple domains, or in robotics on multiple robots. But the key is that you're starting from a simple, very well understood foundation where your very simplistic first take has demonstrated compelling performance advantages. This is generally much easier than trying to solve all of these problems. So novelty, demonstration on lots of techniques, demonstration on lots of data sets simultaneously, especially if you're working with your system in a form that is particularly complex or unwieldy, because inevitably it won't work. That's research, that's the nature of research. And it can become very overwhelming if you're trying to tick off all of the boxes that you know you have to eventually tick off for your PhD all at once, right then and there. So stepping back, simplifying things, creating something that's compelling, albeit simplistic and limited, is a great way to break yourself out of this stressful cycle of frustration and feeling like you're getting nowhere, and get back on track with your PhD.